what's the issue here? And to at least acknowledge that. I hope all of that happens at States, but I've said this to a number of teachers. It was just at a workshop for We the People at Montpelier, in Virginia. You people have power. The state coordinators work for you. The Center for Civic Education works for you. What I mean by that is, you should make suggestions in a nice way, obviously, to how this is structured. Your students are on the line here. State coordinators can learn to get and be better at what they do. Now, that's certainly my responsibility and the staff at the Center for Civic Education to do that. But in terms of when your state competition is, how many questions do you want to have answered? How long do you want the hearings to be? You know, many states have moved to 12-minute hearings and 2 questions and some 3 questions. That, we believe in federalism, that could be a state decision. And it seems to me the best people to make those decisions are the teachers who are bringing their students to these programs. Do it in a nice way, use your power among yourselves, to talk to the state coordinator. What goes on? That's a very good question to ask your state coordinator. What does the orientation look like for the judges at the state and district level? And ask them to respond to that. And if it's not sufficient, I don't know what's perfect, there isn't anything perfect, but you know, certainly talk to me and I talk to them. Because we try to attend some of the state competitions, but we can't go to all of them. And so I'll leave it with the fact that we don't want one, because there isn't any utopia here, we don't want one sort of way to do anything. At the same time, we don't want it so disparaging that there's no connection. Some balance in between is best, I think.
Good morning. My name is Steve Robinson. I'm from Providence Country Day School in Rhode Island. Thanks for taking time out this morning to talk to us. I wanted to talk about the follow-up questions during Q&A, and perhaps talk a little bit about Mr. Ansell's remark about children crying. I think one of the places where it might happen frequently is in units where there is an expectation to make connections between fundamental concepts and today. For example, there's a group that's been talking yesterday about the Renaissance and the Reformation. And there was one panel that of judges that asked a very focused question about how the Renaissance or the Reformation connected to something very specific today. And I hadn't really recalled hearing them discuss that in their opening. And so I was curious if in your follow-up Q&A, I've been observing that there are follow-up questions that everybody's asking, but then there's also some freelancing that goes on. And I guess I was just curious to know if there were some guidelines on that point, or are you really sort of free to go in whatever direction you want, or do you try to ask follow-up questions to, as you said before, get kids to demonstrate that they own their work? Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Since I was on the Renaissance and Reformation yesterday, I recognize Steve.
Smiling.
Yeah. And sometimes judges can be as surprised by the questions they hear as the students are. Is all I can say. We all bring a different approach to the judging. To me, there are essentially 2 choices, but I learned yesterday there can be 3, 4, and 5. One is to follow the students, stay with their presentation, and then try to go in more deeply to issues that they have raised. Another is to use the follow-up questions that the center has presented. And I noticed one of my colleagues yesterday asked only follow-up questions that were on the written sheet. Yet another approach is to try to get the students to take anything they talk about and make it relevant to now. So there's just no way to know. Fundamental fairness, I guess, is the basic hope in all of this. The dilemma with Unit 1, and I am a huge advocate of Unit 1. I think if you don't get Unit 1, you can't get any of this. The challenge in Unit 1 is to make it then relevant to everything else, and to take those abstract ideas and see why they are the core of where the students are living. Because the questions they're asking is, why are we doing it this way? And Unit 1 gives them the opportunity to ask and think about in a framework for responding to the question, why are we doing it this way? Well, there are historic reasons, there are philosophic reasons, but it's all about what we're doing in our political system now. So even Unit 1 students need to be alert that Unit 1 isn't here and the real world is here. And I think that's the challenge of teaching Unit 1, is to keep going back to it, keep weaving it in. And in the current version of the high school text, a deliberate effort is there to do it. As you learned in Unit 1, you will find frequently throughout the text, saying to them, go back and get it, now apply it, now think about it differently. So I don't think it's unfair for students to be asked, well, what does that have to do with today? Or are there any parallels today with what you just talked about?
Yeah, I think obviously that's all right. We are given enormous discretion in terms of sort of what to ask, how to ask it, and I do like Susan saying that sometimes we're surprised by the question from the panel, as I'm sure the students are. I try to do one or two things. I'm a big fan of questions that make specific reference to the opening presentation, because I think for all sorts of reasons, not only do I think that is fair, obviously, it's not unfair to expect students to be able to answer questions that are drawn from specific references or statements in their opening statement. But I think it's a very good way of testing their comprehension of the material. And the other thing is, and this didn't really happen yesterday, but there are frequently in a question, I will get a question that I really like, and that I will then try to ask in various forums to every panel, and that of course then is a way of in a rough fashion, doing a comparative assessment of the different teams. But I do think that all teams ought to be in some respect drilled and prepared for contemporary parallels or lessons to be drawn from the material. That's true in every unit, in every question. There should be some time spent, and I assume that this probably is not news to you guys. I'm sure that you probably do this, because those are very frequently questions are drawn like that, and answers that show an understanding of the historic material and draw parallels to contemporary issues can be very, very impressive to judges.